Okay, looks like that's got started. So yes, hello, welcome to today's webinar, the last in the series of three that we've been showcasing projects that have happened through the Community Rail Development Fund. Here's the programme for today. We're going to be hearing from Community Rail Lancashire about 200 stories of railway pride, from Worcestershire CRP about art at Worcester Foregate Station, Severnside CRP about the Fishing for Change project, and Tyne Valley CRP about the World Heritage Sites by Rail. You can see there on the screen the programme from the previous webinars that have been running over the last fortnight. And if you want to catch up with those after the event, you just need to go to the Community Rail Network website, click on the Member Services page, and within past events material, you can see the Community Rail Development Fund Showcase webinars highlighted on the screen there. So, without wasting any time with my introduction, I'm going to have pleasure handing over to my colleague Karen Bennett from Community Rail Lancashire to talk about 200 stories of railway pride.
Thanks, Gary. Morning, all. I'm going to share my screen with you and talk about 200 stories of railway pride, which is a project which has only just been launched, and the Annex B's only just had its just been sent back to Community Rail Network. So a little bit of a background on the project. Some of you may have seen these stories before, some of you might not have done. Community Rail Lancashire are really keen on engaging with the underrepresented groups who either travel by rail or look towards careers in the industry. So as many of you will know, there aren't many women who work in rail. The percentages are something like 16% women, 84% men. So a couple of years ago, we did a project to get stories from women who work on the railway, women who travel by rail, to inspire other women to take a train journey. So those books we take out on trips, we hand out at events. It's Catherine and I, my colleague at Preston Station, and there's a group of women from Bradford who I took out to depots and took them on trains and got them to meet female rail staff. And it's a handy little resource to take out to sort of give them as a bit of a freebie and hand out when you've got a story. It's just something nice for people to read on a train. Community Rail Lancashire have worked with LGBTQ plus groups in the past, and it's something I'd been wanting to do for a while. Daisy Chapman-Chamberlain, who used to work at Community Rail Lancashire, did a couple of projects with the Proud Trust in Manchester with young people, again, making a booklet and also doing some artwork along the Calder Valley route and in Greater Manchester. So Community Rail Lancashire wasn't new to working with LGBTQ plus groups, but we hadn't done anything for a while. So I thought, you know what, actually, I go out and about to careers fairs, I take a lot of young people out, and there's quite a few people from the queer community who are really keen on working in rail and not quite sure whether it's somewhere where they'll be accepted. And I have conversations, as many of you know, I do a lot of events in rail, and I hear such positive stories of people who work in rail who have gone through their transition, either male to female or female to male, or they've come out as gay in their roles, and they felt very supported. So for ages, I wanted to do a very similar project like 100 Women, but Stories of Pride. So it was going to be 100 stories of railway pride. But this year, of course, is Railway 200. So Caroline Holden, my colleague at CRL, said, why don't you do 200 stories? And me being me went, go on then. He doubled the amount of work. We'll go for it. So so 200 stories of railway pride was born. So a little bit about the timeline of the project, just so you can kind of see how sort of long we've been building up to this. So we're going back to October 2024 was when I first went to my designer to get some costs together in terms of the design, the print, how much merchandise might be that we could give out. I went and sought some match funding. And then in November, once I had sort of all my figures in place, I'd got a match funder secured, which was cross country. I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. It wasn't until December that the CRDF actually went in, and then it was approved in January. So that's when the entries opened. Now, I knew I'd have quite a tight turnaround because I wanted to get the project going for June. So you'll see from my lessons learned later on in the presentation that I think a little bit more time to get the stories would have been good, but we made it happen. So as soon as the CRDF was approved, we opened the entries. I didn't want to do it beforehand because obviously with CRDF, you can only get funding for a new project. So I didn't want to start a project until it was all sorted. But we did a social media campaign. I'll show you some visuals from that in a bit. We did some trips, got some pictures of that. So then throughout the spring, that's what happened. We went out on trips, we got some entries, we did a campaign on socials, and then people had until the end of March to give in their stories. So that left April and May for some editing, the design, a peer review. And then at the beginning of this month, we launched the book at York Pride. All the packages have been sent out to the contributors. I've couriered out some boxes to people who are going to hand it out at different Pride events. So, you know, from now on in, out throughout the summer, we'll be giving these books out at careers fairs. Got a careers fair tomorrow. I'll be handing some out, be giving them out at stations at Manchester Pride, London Pride, Hebden Bridge Pride. So that's the kind of timeline that we were looking towards. The promotion campaign did quite a lot on social media. Those of you who are on social media, you know I'm quite active. It's the way I really try and build my contacts up to get some good stories. So we threw out these flyers every week. There was a generic flyer, but then also there was a sort of a story prompt Friday. So every Friday, what's been your favourite journey one week? Another week was tell us about your coming out story. And some people shared their stories on the post, or it got people thinking of what they could submit. Obviously, there was a QR code people could scan on their phone, and there was a web link as well to a form. And the form was a great idea if you're collating any kind of story or entries. If you've got that on your website, get your web developers to get that together. It's a really great way of collating information. Those of you who will have seen the backtrack competition, we use one of these forms, same sort of thing. People can put their name, their email, the title. And the great thing as well is that that box where it said story had a maximum character limit, so people couldn't send in 1,000 words, and then I had to edit it. It was a maximum, and that made it easy then to edit down, and photos. Not everybody sent a photo, so I did sort of go back to a few people, would you like to put a photo in, and that sort of thing. But the email addresses were great because obviously we could contact people to find out where to send the goodie packs to. And not only did we do some sort of online collecting, there was also some in-person events. So those of you who know Lancashire's work, we're really keen on taking groups out and giving them some real confidence. So I took some youth groups out. I went to LGBTQ plus fairs. The top middle photograph is of me and James Taylor, who's at Northern. He came to join me for a talk at a youth group. And he also ran a writing workshop for me in a queer cafe in Leeds. The best gig of the lot was the Archway Conference. That's down here in the left corner. We got 60 entries that day. So I did a writing workshop there, 2 writing workshops where I kind of got people to do a bit of a speed dating and talking to each other about their stories. And then they all had some quiet time to write out their entries, which was great. But of course, then when I got home, I had to type them all up. But it meant that people could sort of do them there and then. And I find that with a lot of things, if you're doing a competition, if you're doing a collation, if you ask people to do stuff in their own time, they forget, other things crop up. The best way to get something out of someone is to get it there and then. So if you've got the story and they give it to you on a bit of paper, you've got it. If they tell you they're going to email it to you on the train later, well, they might not. So it's always good to kind of get whatever information you want from someone there and then, or hold them to ransom in a way. So the backtrack competition, I go to schools, give them the sheet, and I say to the teacher, well, next week when we come out on the train, you need to give me your entries. So that works. So yeah, cross-country conference, we went to Trans Leeds, a support group in Leeds for the evening, and yeah, that's a youth group from Huddersfield. So those in-person trips doubled up as gaining rail confidence and gathering entries. We then did a trip to London with the Longboat group. So these guys have adopted Wakefield Curgate Station. Chris, who is the guy in the middle here, he is a train driver for Grand Central, but he also is the chair of the group. So we took his group out and they reviewed the book for me, giving some peer feedback, what they thought of it before we went to print. Some of you might recognise that familiar face in the background. My son Laurie gets dragged on all my projects. And this is the final product. This is the book. So it's a lovely booklet that we've given out at different events. It's available online. There's a link here. I can bob it in the chat after I finish my presentation if you wanted to have a little look online. And we've been sending it out to all the contributors. We've been sending it out to key partners. Obviously the guys at Railway 200, Emma Roberts, Mike Lamport have had copies. We got a celebrity entry from a pop star. Obviously we've sent it out to him. And all of the packs, they came with a ticket wallet, a rainbow wristband, which I'm wearing now, a pen and a badge, and also a compliment slip with a QR code. Now that QR code links to a survey, which is on Impact. So any contributor or reader can talk about their thoughts of the book. They can talk about the project. They can talk about what skills the project gave them, whether they gained rail confidence, whether they gained pride in their role. Because obviously when we're feeding back to our funders, or if we're entering any awards or any feedback of the project, having some real key data is useful. So that's gone out. And there's just a few pictures here from York Pride. So there's our team at CRL. We were actually invited with LNER, Northern Transpennine, the Transpennine Route Upgrade team, and Railway Museum to join and march with rail staff. So that was a lovely sort of cross organisation event, collaborative in the industry. We gave the books out to staff, we gave the books out to those in the crowd, and that was a really great way to launch, and we sent some press releases of that out. That was my first budget, and we came in at £17 under budget actually, so we just about got there. Some of the figures changed around slightly, as it always does. Not everybody gave me their their postal address, so I couldn't send them out to all participants. So our postage budget came in a little lower, but we needed to we put a bit more into our merch budget, because some of those bits came out really popular, as you can imagine. So a few lessons learned. The book went really, really well. I'm really pleased with the book. You know, it's a great product to give out for free. If you're at a station, if you're at an event, people are really pleased to receive something. The engagement we had, the groups I've now made contacts with, I'm going to do further work with. The form worked really well, having all the data in one place. And then the Archway Conference was probably the best place to collate the information. What I'd change for next time, the form didn't include the postal address. So I had to message everybody. What would have been good is just say, what's your postal address? And I'll send you a copy of the book. And that would have taken out an extra step of the process for me and saved me a bit of time. And I'd also change getting more time for the stories. It would have been great to book in a few more sessions. And, you know, when you say to a group, oh, I'll take you out on a free trip on the train and you can give me a story, but they're usually booked up for the next month or so. So having a bit more time is usually useful. And one last thing from me before I hand you back to Gary is that some of you know I chair the Education Network at CRN. Our next meeting, which takes place in July on the 16th, we're going to do a focus on LGBTQ plus groups. So we're doing a little bit more information about this if you wanted to find out some more information. So I will stop sharing my screen now. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Karen. That's fantastic. I like the little teaser there with a pop star, but unnamed, unless I missed that bit as well. So I'm not going to ask you to fess up. That could be a little incentive for people to go and have a look at the book themselves.
Oh, okay. I'll do. Well, not everyone might know who it is. My mum did know who it is because she went, oh, I know him. He's on Gogglebox sometimes. But I'll copy the link across and put it in the chat, Gary. And then if anybody wants to download that at some point, they can do that today.
Fantastic, Karen. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. And I should have said at the beginning, we'll take questions all together at the end, unless you want to put something in the chat yourselves. But thanks again, Karen. And we'll go straight over to Fiona from Worcestershire CRP to talk about art at Worcester Foregate Station.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, and now get the presentation up. Okay, so I'm going to talk about an art installation at Foregate Street Station in Worcester. And for context, Worcester Foregate Street Station is sited on the main high street in the city centre, and it's used by commuters, tourists and locals, with over 1.5 million people flowing through the space each year. And the aim was to install a substantial and inspirational work of art. I'm just thinking, coming up on mine, I'll just minimise that. I don't know if that's better. The aim was to install a substantial and inspirational work of art in the underpass connecting platforms 1 and 2. The artwork was also to feature a wayfinding map of the city centre. The left-hand image shows the west wall with entry-exit points to the station at either end. The right-hand image shows the east wall, and there is a flight of steps up to the platforms on each side. And as you can see, the area in the images is quite a bland and clinical space and definitely in need of some colour. So the objectives were to brighten the built environment with colour and design, with a view to improving the well-being of passengers and staff, to contribute to tourism by promoting attractions in the city of Worcester, and to unify the local artistic and cultural communities. By setting these objectives, the artwork would encourage sustainable travel and promote the city of Worcester and all it has to offer. So, for some reason I'm not going on to my next screen. There. So, after initial discussions between myself and Maggie Keeble from the Worcester Art Society to create a rough action plan, we made contact with Stacey Barnfield from the Colour Palette Company because his input would help inform and build on the creative process. The colours chosen by Stacey to represent Worcester can be seen in the image on the left and include Elgar Bronze, Saucy Orange, Hive Gold, Cathedral Stone, Diglas Deep Blue and Pear Black, which all sort of represent parts of the city. Together we formed a working group alongside Crystal Thompson from Worcester Business Improvement District. After we'd received the necessary permissions for the installation, we then secured funding for the project from the 5 organisations you can see across the bottom of the screen: West Midlands Railway, CRN, the Art Society, Worcester Bid and ourselves. The working group produced a design brief for the artwork, detailing both the remuneration and the requirements, which included incorporating a wayfinding map. Local artists were then invited to tender for the project. We also stipulated that the successful artist would provide mentoring to 2 aspiring artists who would assist with the production. We had several applications and invited 3 artists to interview so we could discuss their ideas further. We were fortunate that among the strong candidates, there was a Worcester-based artist, Estee Angeline, who we unanimously decided would be the best fit. We agreed a timeline for key stages, not unlike the timeline that Karen showed earlier, and factored in regular review meetings. It was essential that we kept partners, particularly West Midlands Railway, regularly informed. And as the project neared completion, we began planning publicity, and Worcester Bid kindly organised and hosted a launch event in the cafe next door to the station, where wider partners and dignitaries could attend and celebrate the artwork following installation. So, successes and challenges. Our intention was to situate the artwork on top of a series of white panels, which measured approximately 130 by 70 centimetres, as you can see in the top left photo. The panels themselves needed to remain accessible to the train operating company, as wiring behind them would need occasional maintenance. This presented a significant challenge, as the art installation would need to accommodate this requirement. As it was not possible to create a large single artwork for each wall, an early decision was made to print the design on 40 individual vinyl pieces that could be attached separately to each panel, as shown in the sketch. In this way, the panels could be removed when necessary without damaging the whole artwork. It also meant that the cost of any replacement pieces of artwork could be kept to a minimum. Close communication between the printer, artist and me was needed to achieve this form of installation, and more on that later. So another challenge was that we knew the geography of the map area. In the top right, you can see the map of Worcester there, was soon to be changed, with a new walkway planned taking pedestrians from the station down to the river. So we asked the artist to design 2 versions of that area of the map and then brief the printer to manufacture that particular panel with the new route and also produce a small rectangular sticker of the existing geography. This was carefully placed in the right position of the map after installation and then carefully peeled off when it was no longer needed. I think onto successes. I mean, collectively, we're extremely proud of not only the finished result, but also how we worked to achieve it. Both our working group and the wider partnership were overwhelmingly positive and engaged, with each partner adding value and expertise to our project. For example, it's led to closer ties between the CRP and Worcester Business Improvement District, who took up the colour theme and included it in their street decorations in the city last summer. They've also replicated elements of the artwork through the newly opened walkway opposite the station. The artwork contains a collage of places of interest, and this provides visitors with a sense of the cultural heritage of the city. It also offers a common identity for Worcester residents. It's transformed the underpass, and passengers can be seen using the wayfinding map daily. It has attracted a lot of attention from young people who use the station for school and college travel. There's been a very positive response from both the art community and rail passengers. And here's a short clip where you can hear from some of the project's key players themselves.
Fiona, unfortunately, we haven't got the sound enabled on that, so we can't hear that, I'm afraid. But if we've got time at the end, we could have another go if that's okay.
Okay, I'll share that. I'll put that in the chat later. I'm not sure why the sound isn't working. So, lessons learnt. As mentioned previously, we needed the artwork to be installed on 40 panels. Unfortunately, there was a misstep in common understanding, probably due to a bereavement in the artist's family. Estee was unable to make a couple of meetings shortly after she was commissioned, and although we had emphasised the need for the artwork to be constructed in sections, both in the design brief and verbally in our early meetings, this key requirement was overlooked partway through the project due to the time elapsing between the initial meeting and when Estee started designing the artwork. Once the misunderstanding came to light, there was a last-minute scramble by Estee to get the artwork into the correct format for printing. A vital lesson, therefore, is that it's worth revisiting a project's key conditions several times throughout the whole process. Apart from the above, once the project vision has been established, my advice would be to sketch out what needs to happen and when by creating a timeline with key milestones. Good and regular communication between partners is essential, and factor in time and money for contingency. Finally, leave a bit more between the planned installation and the launch. Thank you. And I'll stop sharing now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Fiona. And yeah, at the end, if we've got time, we can try that video again. Yeah, what a wonderful example of collaboration and bringing partners together. And it's a fantastic visual representation of everything that Worcester has to offer as well. So it's, yeah, wonderful project. And thank you very much for presenting about it. So now we'll move over to Heather from Severnside CRP to talk about the Fishing for Change project.
Have a go at seeing if you can. Everybody see that okay?
Not yet, I'm afraid, Heather. No.
Hold on. No? Okay, hold on a second. Excuse me, we've got quite a storm going on here at the moment, and we had a little try earlier and that the Wi-Fi isn't brilliant, but we will how are we doing now?
It's looking promising.
Good, okay. How's about that?
Yeah, got a thumbs up. Yeah, that's good. And did you enable the sound as well? That's the other thing.
Oh, I might just need to go back and check. I did when I joined, but let me just check that we'll be able to hear.
Yeah. I think you have to do it each time. So
yeah, you do. Okay, yeah, just done that. Sorry for the delay, folks. Okay, are we there? Okay, so I'm here to tell you about a project called Fishing for Change, or as I like to think about it, one of the coolest trips you can have by integrated sustainable transport ever. It's a project that we delivered in partnership with several organisations last summer, a collaboration of ourselves, an organisation called Sustainable Hive, who do loads of wonderful sustainable education projects locally, and we linked in with Bristol Ferry Taxi and West Country Crime Stoppers. And the purpose was to invite families to enjoy a free of charge day out. We're considering how expensive the summer holidays can be for some families. And it was essential to us that all elements were available entirely free of charge. Our targeted areas were identified by Crime Stoppers, particularly the disadvantaged communities around Bath and Bristol that had seen a significant rise in knife crime, and where there's a real need for families to come together and to think about something that they might be able to do to have a positive impact in their communities. So that was one of the real drivers behind the day. We took like 10 groups, up to 18 people joining us, and the day starts at the local station, where we come together as a team, and either myself or a member of the platform community rail education scheme, who weren't delivering to schools at the time because it was in the summer holidays, we came along and did some rail familiarisation work around safety, around promoting good value fares to people as well, because we often find these things that families find the ideal of rail can be a bit off-putting because of perceived costs involved. So we talked a lot about rail cards and best value fares, and yeah, we just had a lovely trip into Temple Meads on the train, where you can join very seamlessly with the Bristol Ferry Taxi. Bristol Ferry Taxi team are brilliant, and they also gave a very interesting history tour to everybody as they travel down through Bristol Harbour. Lots of talking about pirates and singing sea shanties to make the whole thing great fun. And then the really unique part of the day is when we join up and transfer onto this very special little vessel called Sea Cycler. Sea Cycler came to Bristol when we were hosting Green Capital back in 2015, and after that year, Sustainable Hive took ownership of the vessel and run community litter fishing events through Bristol Harbour. So this day was all about cleaning up the harbour. Two groups, we'd split into two groups for each session. So one starts on the Sea Cycler with their fishing nets and fishing litter out of the harbour. The other group do some land litter picking, because a lot of the litter around the harbour will eventually end up in the water, and in turn eventually out to sea, and really risk damaging marine life. Something that was quite staggering. One weekend we did a litter pick immediately after Bristol Harbour Festival, and I was really shocked that they erect a lot of temporary fencing during Harbour Festival, and this is held together by cable ties, which are just snipped off at the end of the event and just discarded on the street. So we picked up hundreds of those, and that in turn, is one of the outcomes. We informed Bristol City Council about that and asked that next year there's a bit more of a responsible approach to how the fencing is joined together, and stopping all this plastic just ending up on the streets and into the harbour eventually. So it's great fun, both land and litter picking on the water. In the water you find some incredibly interesting objects, including a plastic Christmas tree still with its lights on. I've recovered a mannequin, a bike, a pina colada making kit complete with rum. You name it, we seem to find it. But it's so important that this is fished out before it can cause any real harm. And then we come back together and regroup and have a look and empty out all the litter that has been collected from both land and water, and also stop for some sponsored yummy lunch. Once the litter is sorted, and we sort it out into both recyclable and non-recyclables, have a bit of fun and create some artwork with it. Always the aspiration of litter fish, as we call it, and these are photographed and uploaded onto hashtag litterfish, which is a bit of an international hashtag for people that do similar across the world. So throughout the course of the summer, let me find the numbers. I think it was 135 kilograms of litter was fished out altogether, sorted, and as much as possible sent for recycling. Return journey is a lovely time. Children get a chance in turn to skipper the Bristol ferry taxi on the way back, and that's a time where we really have the opportunity to talk to families and find out a lot more about their attitudes to public transport generally. We love these informal occasions to sort of hear the voice of the community, and we find all these events that we do on trains and as part of integrated journeys far more effective than sort of rail user groups, transport forums. Some people would never fill in a survey seeking their views on transport, but we hear a lot this way, and it is really useful. And back they go. We also do a survey on the way back about how people have felt about the day. It was overwhelmingly positive. Yeah, really good to hear. In fact, here are the it was 134 kilograms of litter. Sorry, I had a memory blank just now. That we collected throughout the summer. And the community cohesion part of this was just such an important outcome, because these are communities who can sort of function in various fragmented ways, so bringing families together. And I think actually one of the most positive outcomes being where we saw families making friends and talking about doing something else together in the future and swapping numbers and so on, and the children who hadn't met before often, by the end of the day they're sitting together, they're chatting, and the mums, dads, grandparents, supporters are doing the same, and that was one of the most desired outcomes. Also, after the event, we heard that some of the young people had sent a little bit of writing and some images of their day to Blue Peter, who rewarded them with a green Blue Peter badge, and that gives free of charge entry into various attractions across the country. So a really useful thing to earn. Very positive outcome there. On a light note, my favourite outcome was that there was a very lively 6-year-old who joined us, a lad called Luca. He was great fun. He insisted on carrying his toy dinosaur, who he calls Grandpa, with him throughout the day. He wouldn't let go of Grandpa. I was absolutely terrified that Grandpa was going to end up in the harbour or in some of the litter when it was sorted, but thankfully he made it back safely too, as did everybody else. So here's a quick film of what a Fishing for Change day looks like. Hi everyone, welcome to Fishing for Change.
The boat was amazing. My children really loved that.
It makes me feel very good because it's fun, and we're helping the environment.
The Fishing for Change project is a brilliant day out with a difference. We wanted to make an opportunity for families around Bristol along the railway line to join us on a journey into Bristol using sustainable transport, hopping on board a ferry and then joining us aboard Seacycler to do some litter fishing. So anything we can find in the harbour that's litter, we wanted it out of there, and then eventually we sort it all, recycle what we can and try and make some art from it. Can you make yourself a litter fish? We speak to families about how to be safe around the railway and at stations and when out in their local communities. We talk about where it's great to go for a family day out and how to plan that journey by rail and by other modes of transport such as bus, and as we've seen today, by joining up with the ferry taxi. We also talk about how to find best value fares for the day, and that might be through a rail card or other local discounts that are available. Sea Cycler is a plastic fishing boat. It's made from 99% recycled plastic, fished out of the River Thames, made into its own little boat. We've had over 130 people join us over the summer holidays, taking part in these trips, and it's been a real collaborative project between lots of different organisations, all trying to show how sustainable travel can be part of their lives in Bristol and also how it can be used to do something good. We'd love this project to run every summer. It's been a brilliant way to meet families that haven't had finances to be able to go on big days out, and this is their big trip for the summer. As much as possible, we'd like to be out on the water, clearing the litter and involving local families.
I like the fact that it's saving the environment, it's a good day out, and that we know we're making a difference to our city. Hi everyone, welcome to Fishing for Change.
So I'd like to let you into a secret there that and it ties in with our lessons learned, that the day the only day we could fit everybody in to do the filming was a Sunday. Sundays are always a bit hit and miss with driver availability and prone to cancellations. And that combined with some signalling going down, so we actually never went on any trains that day. We had to resort to bus, so thank goodness they were running smoothly into time. So I suppose that the lesson learned is always to have the contingency just in case things don't go to plan, because it happens. But certainly this summer we will avoid Sundays at all costs. The second lesson learned was actually to be a bit earlier with the promotion and getting out into the community groups. Some community rail development officers were really helpful, and also the use of some very local Facebook groups to promote to families. But was an effective way of the families that we were hoping to reach coming forward to take part. But this year we'll be starting that a lot earlier. Hey, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Heather. Really inspirational project. And I don't know if everybody, the video wasn't necessarily playing ball too much. So if you have a link to share that people can view afterwards, could you post it in the chat? That would be fantastic. Thanks very much indeed. Okay, so we'll pass over finally to Anne from Tyne Valley CRP to talk about World Heritage Sites by Rail.
Good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, this was initially a presentation that Fiona was going to make, but she's got another appointment, so she dropped me into it. You know, that's what volunteer directors are for, I suppose. So just an overview of the World Heritage Sites by Rail project. This is one I'm particularly passionate about because it's not very often one CRP does a product which has a national impact to promote rail travel. The background, back in 2022, there was a celebration of 1900 years of Hadrian's Wall. Within that, that project, a pilot project to create a youth ambassadors scheme was initiated, and we got involved with the youth ambassadors at a fairly early stage, having some meetings and discussions. And during one of those discussions, the youth ambassadors were saying, well, how do we get to other World Heritage Sites by train? There's no information there. How do we do it? And they suggested that we create a leaflet. Now, which I think surprised us because we just thought most people would think digitally. So we started to think, well, maybe we could do this. Obviously, thought processes take a while, and so as we started to develop the project, but what did we want to achieve?
And sorry to interrupt you. I know you've got some wonderful slides. We can't see them at the moment. I don't know if you're sharing them just yet.
Right, okay, I'll try again.
Went so seamlessly in rehearsals, didn't it?
It did, yes. Let me just try again. No, that's not the one I want. Is that working?
We just need it in slideshow mode, and then you'll be there. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne.
Right, are we there now? Are we okay? Yeah. So yes, I'll just quickly go through the couple of we've already dealt with. So what did we want to achieve in our project? It was to create a leaflet to help people use rail to travel to World Heritage sites. It would be a two-pronged impact. One would be encouraging people to use the train. Also, it would support the attractions within the World Heritage sites and support their economy. And I think, as with other projects, being a voice for the community is important. And we wanted to illustrate that we were listening to young people, and that as well as listening, we were doing something about their suggestions. How did we make it happen? Well, obviously, resources is critical to any project, whether it's human resources, but I think financially there's always an implication. TVCRP used some of its own funding into this project, cross country, and TPE also contributed, and particularly to the project was also the CRDF funding. We used that for a range of things. We needed somebody to manage the project, a coordinator. We needed a designer. We needed somebody to undertake the liaison with all the World Heritage sites throughout the country, and to do the research, copywriting, and everything else associated with developing this product. The research, we started this project back in the autumn of 2023, and with a goal of launching the leaflet on Hadrian's birthday on the 18th of April 2024. As with other projects, you self-inflict timing issues and pressure, but we achieved it. Our coordinator, who was a member of the Hadrian's Wall Youth Ambassadors, did all the research, creating contact, developing the contacts nationally to get the copy. One of the issues we found was finding a national rail map we could use. Gone are the days where there used to be easy access to a national rail map. Yes, and probably can recall the days when if you went into a station, they had copies available, but unfortunately that's not available. That's there now. The leaflet design, we used an existing design that the World Heritage UK was using for their summary of all the World Heritage sites, so we didn't have to create a completely new design. However, that design was based on an A5 publication which was folded, and then on the Friday before the launch on the Tuesday, I realised that I couldn't upload it to the internet so that it would be downloadable. So last minute job of getting a flipbook designed, which we managed to do with the help of our designer, who must have been tearing her hair out with me. So yes, we kept to the deadlines, and there was a launch event in Newcastle on the 18th of April. learning points. Getting accurate information. This was something that occurred after the event, where I was contacted by a CRP to say we'd suggested that you visited a certain World Heritage site and we'd given the wrong station access, incorrect information about the station. We relied on information that was provided to us by the World Heritage sites themselves. So it's all a matter of opinion. Any of you that know Hadrian's Wall goes from sort of Wall's End right through into the Cumbrian coast. You could access the wall at one of perhaps 20 stations. So how would you pick the best? So deadlines, deadlines were there was always a little bit of slippage with the plans, but we managed to achieve our deadlines. But I think they are good to have them because it makes you concentrate and focus. Printers, a couple of our usual printers couldn't print the booklet in the format that we wanted it to be printed. So again, it's another challenge that we had to overcome. Booklet format, an A5 booklet isn't necessarily the best to put in racks at railway stations, but again, we've managed to find ways around it. I think digital was the one that we had overlooked in early days, but the flip book we had designed, I was like a kid at Christmas. As we were getting hits on the flip book, I was getting updates from the flip book provider. So it's like, wow, we've had 10 people look at it today. So, and that is still happening. For a product that was launched 14 months ago, in the last 3 days, the flip book has been opened in the USA, Germany, and from Hackney, Brent, Sheffield, Sedgefield and Stockton. So it's got longevity where I think printed material possibly hasn't. The launch event, we'd originally considered doing it in Glasgow, but that turned out to be impractical for a number of reasons. But again, something you need to sort of think about, especially when you're launching a national product. Just little things that, on the morning we discovered we didn't have any tables that had been promised to us. It was a quick, we need to find some tables. And I think finally it's the unexpected costs, which other people have referred to. When we put in project bids, we've tried traditionally to include a contingency, but that isn't always accepted by the funders. But I think it's something we need to bear in mind. And finally, our project achievements. It's been a very popular leaflet. Our local tourist information centres and other outlets still demand copies, and they say they're really, really popular for visitors. We've achieved our national promotional product supporting the World Heritage sites and rail travel. We've been able to help the enthuse the young ambassadors and highlight the fact that we have listened and we've acted. Their skills development has developed throughout the project as well. And I think we've had a worldwide visibility of the digital version, and which we can make available to all CRPs for them to use. As you can see from the map here, you can see where the actual flip book has been opened. If we take Egypt as the African continent, it's been in every continent excluding the Arctic and the Antarctic. So I think it's been a real plus for all of us. But again, if anybody's interested in the flip book for their website, I've put the information in the chat. So thank you.
Anne, thanks very much indeed. That's wonderful. And if you're able to post a link in the chat as well, so that people can have a little look, and if their area features, then I'm sure they'd be delighted to get in touch and find out how they can promote the booklet themselves. So that's wonderful. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've just got about 5 minutes set aside for questions. There's a few bits and pieces have been posted in the chat following up with links and such like, but there aren't any questions as such. In the audience at the moment, would anyone like to raise their hand or just feel free to speak if you have a question you'd like to ask? And you're on silent, but yeah, feel free to ask a question.
Yeah, quick question of Karen. Is it okay to upload your digibook onto our website?
With pleasure, Anne. Yeah. I did speak to Fiona the other day about dropping you off some physical copies as well. So hopefully you can get your hands on some actual books. But yeah, please do share away.
Have you got the embed code?
Oh, now you're asking. See, you're a lot. I'll have a little look for you. I've just been doing doing a normal web link, but I'll have a look and see if there's an embed code.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks, Karen. Any other questions? Karen.
Yeah, I was going to ask Fiona, actually. I love the transformation. I always find that underpasses and tunnels are usually the most dreariest places, a railway station. And when there's something up there, it's always good. When you mentioned the word colour palette, was it Heart of England who used a colour palette? Is it the same guy?
It is. Yeah, it is the same guy, Stacey Barnfield. He's based in Birmingham. I would say that we were first.
Okay.
And what we did, we took his colours to create the artwork using tonal shades of his colours. So it's slightly different than just the image that I shared first of all of the actual colour palette for Worcester. But yes, it is the same Stacey who's doing them internationally now, I understand. I think he's doing one in America, or even 2. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I did notice the difference because it's a bit like going to the DIY centre and getting your little Dulux strips, isn't it, when you see the palette, the Heart of England. But I like the way you had the image in those particular colours, and just choosing a few colours from a palette is really impactful. So great stuff.
Yeah, well, that was the intention behind it, and it has worked really well. Particularly with young people really love it. They love the pigeon, and in fact, if we'd had a bit more time, we should have had a name the pigeon competition, but it's just ran out of time.
Thank you. I'm stalling there. We've got building work at the moment. There's a drill literally behind my head, so if you can hear it, I do apologise. There's absolutely nothing I can do about it. Any final questions before I close the meeting? Okay, well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the speakers today for sharing your insights and inspiration. And I'm sure they'll be of interest both to the people in the room today and those viewing this video after the event. So thanks again for your time, and please do catch up on the videos and of the webinars that happened previous in this series, and hopefully see you again at an event in the near future. So thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.